All right. Welcome to another episode of the Up Your Confidence podcast, a destination podcast for female listeners seeking to build self esteem and maximize leadership and enhance performance at work and life. Our goal is to equip, empower, and elevate you to enhance your confidence every day, to inspire you to leverage your confidence as a key ingredient to reach your God given full potential. Today, I am excited to have another guest, Erika Chestnut. Let me read a quick bio of Erika. Fun, quirky, clever, sassy. Erika leadership style start and stop with relationship. With over 20 years of experience in the tech industry, from application development to spinning up a new quality department, Erica has learned to lead with grace, patience, and a little bit of snarky humor. Her mission is to help people create team culture that are engaged, empowered, and excited. Welcome to the Up Your Confidence podcast, Erica.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you. I was telling you backstage that your bio is so short for all the amazing accomplishments that I know of you. And one of the things that we do on the podcast is I love to always start by introducing the guests from how I know them because I want my audience to know that, I don't just bring stranger on the street. I try to invite people that I have like some kind of connection. And I love that in your bio, it seems like you lead with relationship. And again, I was like, yeah, that's really how I met, Erica. And I've heard your name a couple of times in the quality scene, as I can say, right? And we finally met about a year ago, I think, or more
Yeah.
than a year ago in Chicago. And you were just like a big, joyful person.
Aw.
And one of my favorite thing is your style, obviously. I was like, the first time I met Erica, I was like, I love your glasses and I need those in my life. I think that was like my introduction to Erica. That was the kind of thing that I told her. So thank you for joining the podcast. I want to start by asking you, tell us a little bit about, Erica when she was growing up and how did she get in QA? Like, let's
Bro,
start. Boom, boom.
growing up, like you legit want like little
Yes, yes.
gosh, I think the most interesting thing about my childhood was that I was a military child, not a brat. Although for those of you out there that love to say military children are brats, military brat is an acronym for British Regiment Assistant Traveler. That's where the term
Nice,
comes from.
nice.
It is not because military children are legitimate brats, just to be clear. Okay.
Love
So
it.
I grew
See?
up as a so I grew up as a military child, and I traveled a lot. And I spent most of my formative years actually in Germany, specifically in Europe, but in Germany. And I traveled a lot. Like I was there when the wall came down. I had a piece of the Berlin Wall. I was there when Euro Disney opened. I had so much exposure in to the European continent and culture, and it was really instrumental in shaping who I was as, or who I am as a person. So super excited about that, about my childhood, I guess. Super excited. Um, how I got into quality? Let's see. I started as a developer actually, and I had moved up. And I moved up to leading development teams. I was associate director of development, and I started to complain about our quality. Interestingly enough, as a
Isn't
developer
that where it
complaining about
always started?
quality, yeah, right. As a developer complaining about quality, I was a little bit unaware that that was actually a problem that I should be solving, or should be a part of solving. But I was very adamant that we needed quality and that the organization didn't have it. We didn't have a quality team at this organization that I was at. It wasn't the it thing at the time. This is before Agile. I'm dating myself.
Of
I
course.
like to tell people I'm not old. I'm simply well seasoned. So,
Okay, okay.
but I moved into development. I was in development and I complained about quality. I was an organization. Was like the 23rd employee hired. So I had a very comfortable relationship with the C-suite, specifically the CEO. And I would go into her office regularly and plop down on the couch and say, our quality is crap. We need to fix this. And we had thrown around some really cool ideas about creating an application that before crowd testing was a thing. we basically had come up with this idea to do crowd testing. Gosh, I wish I'd pursued it. But eventually she said, well, you should fix it. And I was like, nah, not me. You're not going to blame me. And we had some conversations. There were some dinners. There were some drinks. It was more than likely the time that there was drinks was when I said yes.
Okay.
There's something I was slightly out of my mind. But I tell you, when I moved into quality, I went to my very first conference, which was Star West. And I fell in love. I fell in love with the organization and strategy and the intention that was required to lift quality in an organization and the process. And so I never looked back. I moved into quality and I began to lead quality and build quality teams. And I've been doing it ever since.
Awesome. This is a question that I usually not ask people, but I knew that your childhood was fascinating, and I think it really drive or impact, how what you're doing today, right? So, build quality team, we love that. What would you say is the reason why you are so passionate about what you do today?
Ooh. The thing, it's like I'm a quality leader, but I'm a leader. I'm a people leader, and I'm passionate about people. My childhood instilled in me a interest to see people. Having been in different cultures, exposure to different cultures, there's something in me that just is very concerned about being considerate of others. And I don't always get it right. By no means am I saying like, I am this perfect petal that is, always taking care of other people. No, I'm selfish just like any human being. But there is a lack of consideration that shows up for people, and it's irksome, and I see it. And it shows up in leadership a lot. And it's oftentimes because leaders we're not investing in our leaders as they matriculate up. Oftentimes leaders go into leadership from being like this high performing individual contributor, and we think, oh, they're going to be amazing leaders to help others be exactly that. But they're really two different skill sets, and we need to they can become those leaders and also instill those same high performance skill sets and mentality and tactics that they leveraged. But we have to support them as leaders so that they can lead people. And so it's that leadership piece is really important to me, and what I've dedicated my time in and out of work to improving upon.
Yes, there's so much to unpack there. So let me go, because I had to get my piece of paper. When I get my piece of paper in the podcast, it means like, it's going down.
Oh no.
There's a lot of information. And there's three pieces in this answer that you just gave. So there's three questions that's coming into my mind. One is a couple of weeks ago, we had a wonderful lady talk about CTO on my podcast, right? And I think what you're mentioning is correlating to what she said. I want to first talk about your personal story a little bit before we, start talking about other people. So you were in Kiwi, and then you had this conversation, you got a couple of drinks, and then you say yes. So how did you prepare yourself as Erika into those leadership roles? Because one of the things that I like to say is I'm a student of leadership, and I'm sure you are too, but I want to get it a little bit more into because in leadership we always talk about self-awareness, right? You have to think about you first, get better before you can actually lead other people. So tell us a little bit more, how did you, your journey into leadership a little bit?
I stumbled a lot. I did a lot of listening to other people, but I was also still Erika. I was the bubbly, I want to hang out. Hey, how are you? How was your weekend? I was cool, chill, wanted to be friends. That was always me. And I distinctly remember I had a leader. Not leader, but it was feedback from another leader in the organization. And they said that I was too friendly with my direct reports. And I was like, oh, I'm not doing leadership right. I'm in these leadership roles. I'm not doing this right. And this was early on. Like I'd only had 2 leadership roles at that time, or 2 teams that I had led. And I said, well, I guess I need to not be friendly. I need to not let them come in my office and sit down and just have a whole conversation, or, ask them to go out to lunch, or sit at their desk and ask them how they were doing and what was going on with them personally. I need to not do that. And I stopped, and it lasted maybe 2 weeks. I was miserable. I was like, these are people that I work with. They are friends. They're friends. And I want them to be friends. I want them to be able to tell me that they're having a bad day, and how can I help them? Right? Like, as a leader, how am I helping you? That was like a pivotal point for me. That's one of the pivotal points in my career, was me recognizing that I am who I am, and I had to show up authentically to be a good leader. So when you talk about self-care and understanding, or being yourself, and you have to understand who you are to show up through that, and be a leader that people want to be around because you are being authentic. I think I may have gotten off track.
Oh no, we not. We on track. I'm keeping track because you are going like 10 step into where I want to talk about. But since you already bring it up, because literally, Erika, I was gonna ask you this question, and it's like one of the last questions, but since you brought it up, let's just confront it. Because this thing about us women, right? That we gotta be friendly to be a leader. We gotta be bubbly, we gotta be. But I think, as you mentioned, and I'm struggling with that because culturally, different culture asks for different leadership style, which we call, adapt and transformation leadership. So I think the key word that you kind of mentioned is already authenticity. So trying to find your authenticity, because I've been struggling lately about, should I be friendly and firm, or should I be firm and friendly? Like, how do I lead? And
Yeah.
because I have team in the state and I have team also in Africa. So, and then because it's different continent, different country, and different culture, I'm trying to adapt, and some places, my stand is usually friendly than firm. But I
Mhm.
am seeing myself trying to become firm and then friendly, but then I'm like battling in my head literally this week, yesterday, like, I'm gonna become an authentic Lisette and just be
Yeah.
transparent and lead on my three pillars that are like visibility, transparency, and authenticity. That's what I'm gonna lead on
I
going
love that.
forward. And so I love that you mentioned that. So we're not off track. We're gonna get back on track. So getting back on track is being a student of leadership, trying to be authentic. So how where other people perceive you, what was the journey into other people perceive you and say, okay, Erika is a friendly leader, so I can come to her. Did that work for you or not?
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely worked for me. I had a an employee, a team member, a friend. She is a friend. Years ago when we worked together, and she had a pretty she had a pretty traumatic experience. And she came into work. And now, she had always been very prickly. And this was a time in her career, in her life, where she definitely thought much higher of herself. And there was very little humility. um, Still a great person. Just, she was fighting for her position. And she was like, I have to be firm on who I am and what I want. Otherwise, I'm not going to get where I want. And I respected that. She just needed some tweaking on how she did it. And sometimes she was a little too firm, or a little too, her
Intense.
assertiveness. Huh?
Intense. Intense.
Intense, right? Her assertiveness, like, because I don't want to say you can't be assertive, because you should be, but there was an edge to it that she didn't that she didn't give. She didn't make it smooth for others to be able to accept in some ways, and it created prickliness, right? And it's just that's just like, how do you present yourself or represent yourself to people, and understanding how people perceive you? Because if that's
Right.
not what you want, make the adjustment. If it is what you want, do you, for sure. You're showing up the way you want. That's authentic, right?
Right.
Anyway, she had a really traumatic event. She came into work and she was maybe a little extra prickly, but nobody really noticed it.
For her, that's
Yeah,
like
right. But there was just something. She was like on edge, and it wasn't anything in particular. But I pulled her to the side. It was pretty early on. She'd only been at work for like an hour, and I was like, "What's going on? talk to me.
Mm.
And then she tells me, and I mean, it had nothing to do with work. It was something that was embarrassing to share. It was horrible that it happened. And she told me. And I was able to support her, but it was because I had shown up, I had put in the work, I had worked on the rapport and the relationship over time. And this wasn't 5 years that we had been together, but my first interest was relationship, was building relationship and then work. And so because of that, she had a safe space and she was able to tell me, and I was like, listen, let's offload your work. Please go home, take some time. Let me know when you can come back. We'll be fine. We'll sort it out. Right. And that was a bonding point for us. And we're still 10 years later, great friends, great friends. Right. And there's significant trust. So relationship is a big deal. Did I answer your question, Lisette?
Yes, yes, yes. Because I mean, what you're saying is lead with relationship, and that's a typical Erica. That would be a typical Erica answer. In
Start
my
there. Start with
no,
relationship. Everything
because
else
the
will
thing
come.
is, you have to realize that I'm asking the question, and you are answering based on your frame of mind. So
Yeah.
yeah, leading with relationship might be easy for Erica, but not for other people, basically.
Yeah. I mean, some people it's hard to build rapport. And that was one of the
Yes.
things for me, like being a military child, that came
Mm,
easily. Being a child that moved around, it was something that I learned to be able to move into new spaces with new people and feel relatively comfortable. There is
right.
definitely an awkwardness, but once I like tap in, connect in, I'm okay. Right.
Yes.
Networking is always a challenge for me personally. Like it's draining, but connecting with individuals has never been a difficult thing for me, but I could never
Yes.
explain it. People were like, how do you build rapport so easily? Or
Exactly.
how
Like
do you, yeah,
I feel like you are unpacking it because see when you say like, oh, build relationship, it's like yes, easy for you, but give me more. So I think you nail it. It's the fact. Again, I'm so glad that we went back to the childhood, right? Because it's the fact that you have to navigate. So it's something that you already nurture, and it's not easy, but you have mastered it maybe at a younger age. So now in adulthood and in corporate, it's just a little bit easier. It's just interesting that you're thinking there's a difference between that and networking, but we're not gonna,
yeah.
compare and contrast because
Yeah.
in my mind, I feel like, because I had a lady on my podcast years ago, and she mentioned because I also felt, that networking was super hard. But then she kind of like delivered me because she said networking is just meeting people and building bond. So she's like, at church you networking, in the grocery store you networking. And I remember she even mentioned that your friend at work and your friend at church are all, and this was during the pandemic, and it actually gave me an aha moment because I realized that yeah, now we are home. There's no
Mhm.
longer, my work friend, my home friend, my church friend, we all the same.
Yeah, they're
But
all
she
people.
did mention that you only have a conversation about your work with your work friend and then not with your church people. Maybe like when you are out of work, for instance, you talk to people at church. Maybe
Mhm.
that's building relationship and that's building networking. So I think they're
Mhm.
actually the same. It's just that, sometimes we put some name, those names become like very disattractive and it kind of like
Yeah.
block us. Otherwise, I feel like I'm gonna say Erica is good at networking and I'm sticking to it.
You
So
stick it to it. Hey, listen, speak it to existence. I'm okay with that.
so let's move on. Now let's talk about what you do and because I know you are into disc. So tell us a little bit more how you got into communication and leadership a little bit more, and now giving it to others. Not only doing it for
Yeah.
yourself but actually extending for others.
Yeah, for sure. Um, I was actually gonna, the people have asked me, so when they would say, how do you build rapport so easily, or how do you read people so easily? And I would
Right.
always say, oh, well, it's just because I've had to learn that. Like it's just been my life that I've it had been exposed to so many
Like
different cultures. I
package
had
it
to
for
kind of,
us. Package it for
yeah,
us.
right. And I was like, I don't know. It's my secret sauce. I don't know, right? um, how do you read people? How do you respond to them the way that you do? And disc, when I found out, when I learned disc, it was like, this is the model. This is the
Right.
model. And my mind was just blown because I was like, this is how you read the room. This is how you read people. You take that language, read the room, and that's negative oftentimes, and it becomes a
Right.
positive. I am reading the
Right.
room to create value. So I got to DISC though because I was told to read the room. I was told in a performance review that I had sanctioned for myself because I wanted feedback,
Oh Lord.
anonymously, of course, because nobody says this to your face, that I should read the room because some people think certain genders should be more docile and quiet.
Oh gosh. You
Yeah,
use a big word.
black and white. That was in black and white. And to this day,
Ouch.
I'm 95% certain I know who wrote that. 95% certain.
Oh, because this was anonymous. Even better now.
It
Yeah.
was it was 360 feedback. It was anonymous
Right.
and it was sanctioned by me. So there was no, it had nothing to do with my employer, but I did ask coworkers.
Oh
I did,
Lord.
and
How brave. How
well,
brave of
listen,
you.
I wanted the feedback, right? I wanted feedback, and there was a particular coworker that I especially wanted feedback, and he showed up very well to tell me that I should read the room. And I said, okay, I will. And so I started to seek out more leadership advice, materials, support. I've got a stack of books, like just pouring over it. And a friend of mine told me about John Maxwell leadership. And he told me about it and I was dismissive. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm not going to do that. And then as I continued to develop, running across the material and wanting to give back. I had started coaching at that point. And I was like, I want to give more, especially to women in tech. What can I give? What can I give? What are some systems and solutions that I can leverage to give back? And I came back to the John Maxwell material. And I went to the training, became a certified leadership consultant through John Maxwell. He has this massive repertoire of leadership training and
Right.
books. And
Right.
DISC was a part of that. And then when I took the DISC training, I was like, this is it. This is the model. And then I became a consultant. And I was like, this is it. This is the model. Because I can tell you in 5 minutes how to use DISC, what it is and how to use it so that you can go out there. You'll say, oh, I know somebody like this on this, like who's a D, outcome driven, results driven, and they don't want to be taken advantage of, so they take control in some situations. I can see that person. Oh, I can see somebody who's an influence person, social butterfly, but they fear critique. Oh, I know somebody like that, right? And then you have these 4 buckets, and all of a sudden you're reading the room. As you're speaking to
Right.
people, you're seeing where they are and who they are, and you're able to adjust your conversation so that they can hear you, so that you can get to the outcomes you want. So that's how I got to it. And it was like, oh, here you go. Here's how you build rapport and read the room. Boom, DISC.
So to summarize, it's like you already had the innate easy communication, and your journey through Maxwell leadership was actually giving you the tools, to
Mm-hmm,
now be able to explain what you kind of knew already, but now you have a tools. And then
mm-hmm.
once you have the tool, obviously the next step is to share with people.
Yep.
So I love that. I didn't even know that that's how you got into it, because I've been to like Maxwell leadership training before, because
Yeah.
friend invite me. I read many of his book, but I took this pretty much like 3 times. And I think it's super brave of you to ask for like a 360 feedback out of the blue. Every time I've done a 360 feedback, it's because like the company
Required.
requested it's required. And I mean, I had like 1 or 2 that was really cringe, as the young people we say.
Yeah.
And I got coached through it, and it really gave me some self-awareness, and then I had to
Yeah.
able to learn from them. But I didn't get like a shocking one about like read the room. So as we say, whatever you get is always going to lead you to something even better, because
Mhm.
if that person didn't say read the room, you wouldn't be like the Erika today that is doing this for living,
It
right?
is
So
the
let's
best
talk
advice
about,
I've ever been given.
yeah. So let's talk about how you leverage DISC in your training, because I mean, one of the things that you are great at is really helping people figuring out the
Yeah.
different what do they call it, the different
Styles, DISC
style,
styles.
exactly.
Yeah.
Is it communication style or leadership style?
Yeah, it's communication style, but
Okay, the
it's
different.
part of your leadership, right? It's
Yeah. So how or what are the success story for people? Because I know when I go to conference and I see people in training, your room are packed and everybody's like talking about it. There's a B situation happening. So
it's a
tell us a little
beast.
bit more.
Well, one of the things that I do is my Speak with Quality workshop, where we focus on leadership, communication, and culture, and driving those through effective communication. And yes, there are beads involved. We get some Mardi Gras moments. There's some buzzers. There's some rock, paper, scissors. And most of all, there's lots of laughter and fun. Last conference we were at Star East. And after the break, we came back from the break early because everybody came back to the room early. And people were still standing outside just listening in because they had heard us on either side of the conference.
Oh, okay.
Well, they had heard us having so much fun and they were like, what are they doing? But yeah, I do workshops in my coaching, on my one-on-one coaching. I always give a DISC assessment, and I walk my clients through that as a foundation for the conversation, because oftentimes there's a challenging person in their organization that they're trying to navigate with. And so I talk to them, I frame it with DISC and say, what style do you think they are? Now let's talk about what style you are. Now let's talk about how we can adjust your communication to show up in a way that they will want to listen. Right? Not adjust you, it's your communication. What is your style of communication? How do we leverage your style to show up in a way that they want to listen? Right? And so I always use that as a foundation. In my workshops, I've worked with teams like Quality Works. I've worked with teams like Calendly, Greenlight Financial, and I've done workshops for those teams similarly on DISC as the foundation, but through the lens of like what challenges or pain points that they want to work through. The CEO of Quality Works, Stacy Kirk, I love talking to her. She's a great friend. And anytime we talk, she is constantly referencing her style and her team style. She did a talk at Star East this past year. She did a keynote, and she talked about how empowering it was to understand DISC. And she used some data from that I've had from doing all of the DISC assessments for quality folks. But she talked about how her team, after they did their workshop, they completed their yearly goals by October, and they had never met their yearly goals before. And it was because she attributes it to the fact that they went through this workshop and they understood better how to communicate. It creates high performance. It creates team synergy, which drives high performance. When the team understands how to work together, communicate, everybody understood what they needed to do. They understood the vision. It was very clear, and they were able to take action. So that's how I use it. I do leadership training and leadership workshops, and I try to always start with communication because it's the foundation. It's the thing you need to develop relationships.
Right. Two questions. The first one is, when you're doing coaching, let's say you're coaching Lisette, and I know my style, but as you mentioned, I'm working with maybe my direct report. Is it safe? Is it a good best practice to just guess people communication style?
I mean, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. If you can get their actual style, great. If you want to give a DISC assessment to your team, that's even better, right? Because now you have your team assessment. Now you know what your team makeup looks like. But you think about it, as you're engaging people in the world, and somebody shows up a particular way, it's not a bad thing to say, oh, they're probably more detail oriented, so they're going to appreciate the details, or this person is more outcome focused. And if I go into the details, their eyes are going to glaze over and they're not going to be interested in engaging with me anymore. And I want to engage with them. I like them, right? There's nothing wrong with that. And you do it anyway. Right? Like
you already it's like making a judgment of them, but without judging them, but also creating a framework so it can help you communicate.
Exactly.
So I think you think it's okay. Okay. I was always wondering, because I also did the caller, and since I did the DISC and the caller, now when I'm talking to people, if I know them prior, I'm kind of like guessing in my head, and I'm always questioning, like, is this a good best practice? Should I be guessing them, or should I just be in forefront and trying to learn from them? That's what I mean.
You're guessing, you are learning, and the color model is the color of people and stuff like that is DISC.
Yes.
It's the same thing,
I
right?
think it's the underlining is this to just
Yes,
use color to make life easy for people.
right.
I
And
think.
just uses the same colors, so it's the same thing.
Oh,
But
interesting.
yeah, it's fine. You're doing it anyway, right? Your intention. It's what is your intention? If your
Right.
intention is I want to understand this person, I want to develop rapport and therefore relationship, and so I need and want to understand this person. You're just giving yourself ways to understand it.
Right.
It's just another model.
Right. So the second question is, I think it's a marvelous idea, and every time I have done this, it has worked. So I'm not surprised that our friend Stacy got like the best result, because I felt like every time I do this with my team, like
Mhm.
collectively, and we sat in a room and we did each of a disc, and then we discuss it. The next 6 months become a game changer. The last time I did
Mhm.
an organization was 2016, but the next 6 months, everybody was talking disc, meaning like he's an I, he's an S. Everybody's like
Yeah,
vibing in that mode of like the disc mode, to a
yeah.
point where at some point I had to be like, okay, let's not be using those, because then we see each other in other meeting, and folks have not done disc, and now we're like, oh, he's definitely an I, he's, and then they're like,
Yeah.
what are you guys
What are you
talking
talking
about?
about?
So, and I even remember when I did it, because I joined this company and I asked, because the previous company I had a 360 feedback, and this was following, and it was really revealing to me for the first time. So then the next company, as soon as I joined, I asked for this for my team, for my QA organization. We did it, it was great. And then I was asking now my VP to do it for the
Mhm.
entire engineering, and then we got somebody to start doing for engineering. But prior to that, we had it like 6 months in, and we were already talking, and everybody was
Yeah.
just like tired of us, and we are like, we need to get into this team final. So I think it's a great idea. But do you find that company understand that it's valuable to do it for the group?
Yeah, I think, you know, transparently, they know that it's valuable. And I see it over and over with other disc consultants, right? Where they are leaned in there. This is their company. This is what they do. They do training, and they're going into big and small companies, and the companies are leveraging it. I had one consultant I know of. She posted a picture of a company that she worked with, and they had all the teams' profiles on the wall with their
Nice.
picture and a little bit of a note about them. Another person said it was required now to put in your title on Zoom,
Yes, yes,
right?
we
Like
did
you
that
just
too.
have your style,
Yeah,
right?
we did the color, like
Yeah.
your background was the color.
Ah, okay.
Mine
Yeah.
was red. So everybody, when I entered the
Look
the
at you
Slack
running
room,
red.
everybody's like, "Oh, here is Fiery Red entering the room." I'm like, "Yes, sir. Get into it.
Get
Get
into it.
fast."
Get those results. Let's go.
So that was
Um,
good.
so yeah, I think companies do recognize the value, um, but it's hard for them in some cases to invest, unfortunately. Right there, this is where I talk about like the balance of innovation and quality, and I talk about it
Right.
in the lens of quality and engineering organizations, where we're balancing innovation, product development, moving the product forward, and balancing out quality. But when you think about it, it's the same thing at the company level.
Right.
Where do we have quality in our organization? Do we have it in our communication, our transparency, our people? Or are we so focused on those OKRs and those SMART goals, the driving innovation forward, that we don't have a balance between innovation and
Right.
quality, that ratio of the things that we're doing to drive quality alongside innovation is imbalanced, right? So
Right.
then what happens is, like, do they recognize that team performance drops and why it's dropping? How do you get high performance? Right? You can't
Yes.
you can't bribe, berate, beat up to get it.
Yes.
You're not gonna get it that way. You're gonna get low morale, attrition
Right.
of your actual high performing people, and
Yes.
you're going to your innovation is going to suffer, and your quality is going to continue to sink. Right? It's going to continue to tank, and ultimately your customers aren't going to be as satisfied.
I agree, because everywhere that I can say that I had high performance team, it's because we had a good understanding of each person, a
Yeah.
quality mind, but also communication style, and we were all in lock and
Yeah.
load in sync. Once you have that, because I mean, I always say people come with the skill set, you can train them, but you need to be able to communicate. And we both are in quality. There's we People have no idea how many things get dropped off,
Yeah.
off the line because people are not communicating.
Yep.
And if
Yep.
you just know everybody communication style, you're gonna get like 10 step ahead. So I feel like it's a good case study, to
Yeah.
improve. I was just wondering, like, does the leader really know that this is a game changer if they just get into it early?
Some
So
do. Some
okay.
do. Some do, and they invest. Some do, but they don't have the buy-in to be able to invest. And some don't. I mean, it really is. It's across the board, right? Like there are companies that are just like, yeah, okay, this is a fun thing to do, but they don't see the true value. Even though you can give them the numbers, you can talk about how performance is improved because of culture in the organization and better communication, how that drives performance, right? Like you can show the numbers, you can show the data. It all depends on where they want to invest their money. Again, innovation or quality.
You say something invest, and I always talk about on this podcast that corporation will do what they want to do, and
Yeah,
if it's in a good way, they will invest where they want to invest. But us, you yourself have to invest in yourself. So I feel like even if you have a corporation and they don't want to make you do this, you can do this for yourself you
yeah,
know so do you get people that because I mean, I think you mentioned that when you coaching people, you make them take disc. So if
yeah.
people are coming to you directly and they're getting coached, you can make them take disc, right?
Well,
And
not
then
make
they get
them,
to.
but it is included as part of their coaching
Oh,
package,
okay.
their
Yeah, because
coaching
this is
program.
pay. This is a pay service. So
Yes, so disc is paid, and then so I do offer, like I will allow people to purchase disc assessments through me.
right. Okay.
Um, and some people will opt to do debriefs, but most of the time, and that's one-offs where I'll do like a debrief with a disc session. I usually offer those to conference goers when I do my workshops at conferences. I say, hey, if you want your disc assessment, I'll offer you a promotion for a debrief. You can get your disc assessment and a debrief where I'll walk through the document with you or the
Right.
report. But usually my coaching programs, I have a 6-month and a 9-month program, and we
Nice.
start with disc and we do a 2-hour kickoff, and I take them through a training plus a whole lot of very, very pesky questions to learn them, to understand where they're at, what their goals are. And then we go into 6 months of coaching and constantly are referring back to that disc, and that's their style and the style of people around them.
So the coaching, is it individual coaching or is it a group coaching?
I currently not only, I mostly do individual coaching, one-on-one coaching
Okay.
for leaders, emerging leaders. I have an executive assistant leader who I'm coaching as well. Just all types, quality, engineering, all of them. So, but I've toyed around with opening group coaching. I need to come back to the idea of group
Yeah, it's
coaching.
a lot of work, definitely. Because I
Yeah.
mean, it has the pros and cons because then you can create a community around it,
Right.
or not. But I think
Right.
the way this work, because I also love for people, I call it, know about yourself, and I have
Yeah.
like a group of suggested, at least for me, is a suggestion of different assessment and tools out there that you can
Mhm.
just go find out for yourself because it's almost like in the Bible, know that self first, and
Mhm.
then you can actually, so it's revealing to yourself, and then you can learn about yourself, and then we go from there, because I think it's just a good way. Cool. So we already talked about, because I mean, we get into at the end, we already talked about how to work with you a little bit, but do you want to tell us a little bit more, like the best way for people to work with Erika Chestnut?
Yeah. You can reach me. The best way to reach me is on LinkedIn. Send me a message. Always on LinkedIn. Just don't tell my
That's
boss.
what I find. That's where I find Erica usually.
Just find me on LinkedIn. I'm trying to post more and be more,
Uh,
but also that
it's
networking thing, it's the same mentality. But
yes.
I'm there, and I love to hear from people. If you have a quick question, if you want to tap in really quickly, I do my best time available. You can also learn more about my programs at erikachestnut.com. That's
Nice.
Erika with a K,
Yes.
chestnut.com.
Hallelujah. A K, not a CK, by the way.
No,
Like,
not a CK. No
there's all
judgment.
kind of
No judgment if you got a C or a CK, but it's Erika.
yes.
Erika.
Because one thing that I hate, this is a side note, I just hate misspelling people name. Like I
No.
have like anxiety when I'm typing people name. I'm like, okay, this is Erica with a not a C, not a CK, but just a K. So that's why I was like repeating that. But that's
Exactly.
wonderful. So we'll add all that to the show notes. One of the questions that we love to ask people on the podcast to end is, how do you up your own confidence
Mm.
every day?
Every day, every day, I have a framework, and it's my
Okay.
clarity, confidence, power. And if I am struggling with the imposter monster, as I call it, sitting on my shoulders, digging its claws in, when I recognize it, because I don't always
Mhm.
recognize it at first, but when I recognize it, when I feel that weight, I ask myself, where do I not have clarity? Because already the imposter monster is sitting there, which means that my confidence is down.
Yes.
So I'm like, clearly something that I'm not clear on. And so I have to take a step back. What do I not have clarity on? How can I get that clarity? What can I do? So now I've empowered myself to take action to gain that confidence, right? So if we talk about you gain clarity to develop confidence, now I have power, a power that nobody can take because
Ooh,
I have a path forward. And
love
then
it.
even once I understood that I've walked the path, now I'm clear on what was missing. That's even more power, right? It's like, no, I know what I'm doing. I'm good. So that's how I boost my confidence every day. If I'm weighed down with the imposter monster, I'm going to take a step back, understand where I'm lacking clarity so I can boost my confidence and move with power.
Because you're my friend, what do you do for fun?
Ooh, I roller skate, although I haven't been going. We moved and we don't have any really good skating rinks like we did where we moved from.
Okay.
So that's been a bummer, but I like to roller skate, but I do a lot of swimming. I got into swimming last year and I fell off a little bit during the winter because it's
Cold.
cold, but I swim. And then I hang out with my kids. I love to take my girls to their gymnastics team practice. And that's one of my favorite things to do as well.
Awesome. Thank you. This was wonderful. I am so happy, that we were able to cover your leadership style, your communication, and how did you get into it, your childhood.
Yeah.
I think people will learn a lot about this. So thank you so much. Stay tuned.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.